Monday, January 9th. We'd like to welcome everyone to our first regular school board meeting of the 2023 year. Tonight in the boardroom, we have members Donnelly, Higgins, Holloman, Jacobs, Lessons, and Bellamy. Online, we have member Wilson. We also have with us our superintendent and various support staff throughout the room. So at this point, we've done the roll call. We're going to have a flag salute. Please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Member Lessons, if you would do the land acknowledgement.
On behalf of the Anchorage School Board, I want to take a moment to recognize and offer gratitude for the sacred ancestral lands of the Dena'ina people. We acknowledge and appreciate that our offices, facilities, and schools are on these sacred indigenous lands, and we honor the traditional care that has been given to this land throughout generations. We are grateful for the opportunity to grow, learn, work, and create educational communities on this sacred land. We extend continued respect for the many cultures, creativity, and resilience of its indigenous peoples. Chinan.
Thank you very much. I would like to again welcome everyone to our meeting and thank you for attending and of course for supporting the work of the Anchorage School District and the Anchorage School Board. The board would specifically like to thank our students, parents, teachers, staff, school business partners, and the entire community for the investment in our district with your time, with your talents, and your tax dollars. With that, we will move to item A3, which is the approval of the agenda.
Madam President, I move to approve the agenda as presented. Second.
Moved in second to approve the agenda as written. Is there any yes, Member Donnelly?
No opposition, but this is reminds me of a pre-2018 earthquake agenda. It's so short.
Oh. Oh, you got funnies tonight. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Member Donnelly. All right. The motion before you is to approve the agenda as it is presented. We're going to have to do a voice vote since we have one member online. Whenever you're ready, Ms. Foster.
Member Higgins. Member Donnelly.
Yes.
Member Holloman.
Yes.
Member Lessons.
Yes.
Member Jacobs.
Yes.
Member Wilson.
Where is she? Yeah, just not present. She probably *6 to.
Yeah. Okay. And President Bellamy.
Yes. Thank you. And that motion passes 6 yeas to 1 not present. Thank you. That moves us now to item B. We do not have a military report. That will be at our next meeting on the 23rd. And our student representative will join us again on the 23rd of January. Item C is our goal monitoring. That will resume as well on 1/23 with our routine conversations regarding report will be given at that time. And then we'll have our conversation at the next meeting. With that, that brings us to our first hour of public testimony, or public comments. And we're happy that you're joining us today. If this is your first time, there are some basic rules for and aids to navigate the boardroom during our meetings. For those who have not attended school board meetings in the past, you may be familiar with the rules below as set by the board president and board policy. During public comment, board members will not answer questions or engage in discussion with members of the public. It is the public's time to speak and the board's time to listen. You may comment on non-agenda or non-action items. If you are here to participate during public comment, you will have 3 minutes to speak. Time permitting, each person is allowed one opportunity to testify on a non-agenda item or non-action item. When 30 seconds remain, a bell will ring to inform you that you can finish your sentence. Comments on action items. An action item memo is first introduced by the vice president, and if seconded by another board member, the president will open the floor for public comment. If you will have 3 minutes to speak at that. You will have 3 minutes to speak, and again, you will get a 30-second bell near the end so that you can wrap up. The school board welcomes the public to observe and contribute to our meetings through comments, but to be productive, our meetings must be structured and civil. Rules of the boardroom. Do not attack a member's or speaker's motives. Speakers may point out what he or she believes to be the natural consequences of a board action, but may not engage in speech that personally attack others. Refrain from disturbing the meeting. No cheering, applause, or outbursts. Attendees will not be permitted to interrupt the business of the school board. No profanity or foul language. There is no place in a public meeting of the Anchorage School Board for profanity or swearing. No waving of signs, flyers, or posters. If you have handouts and you wish to have them distributed, please give them to Ms. Foster here to my left, and she will distribute to the board. The board president has a duty to enforce these rules of civility and decorum. As such, speakers may be ruled out of order for violation of these rules. Anyone who does not adhere to these rules and fails to conduct themselves in a civil manner may be removed from the meeting. And with that, Board Policy 9323 really addresses the conduct that is expected in the boardroom. So with that, we have several students tonight. These are our students, yes. All right, so let's have Abigail and Matthew come up. You can come together, just sit right here see where the mics are right here? Yes. And Abigail will let you go first, and then state your name, and then you can give your comments. And when you're done, we'll move over to Matthew.
Okay, is it on? Okay.
Yes.
Ready to begin? Hello, Anchorage School Board. I'm Abigail Hancock. Thank you for taking the time to hear me out and trying to understand my point of view. The Alaska Native Cultural Charter School, which I will refer to as ANCCS, is in desperate need of a school. The building that currently houses Abbott Loop, which I am heard to close, is where we should go. ANCCS needs to connect with the kids and help them out, which I believe can only happen if we had a building to house them in. ANCCS, which I believe is the only school to do this, used to have a big week-long event that every year you could do any native craft of your choice. ANCCS would invite 25 artists and substance specialists to come and teach the kids. This week provides native education to all their students, even the ones who are usually not able to afford to do so, or those who are not connected to their culture. Since COVID, we are no longer able to have this week because we do not have a building to call our own. Culture Week was one of the best times of the year for me and was one of the things I was always looking forward to. I remember learning how to make native dolls, headdresses, and gloves in one of the last Culture Weeks we had. ANCCS used to be able to have family nights connect and give students leadership positions. ANCCS would have movie nights to fundraise for the school and its students. One year, we fundraised for one of the students who had a fatal disease and couldn't make it another full year. We raised money to provide one last happy Christmas for the kid. Students helped with all the events, not because they were forced, but because they wanted to help. Since we do not have a school to be our home, we cannot have the same amount of events. I remember helping with the food, watching over the projector during our movie nights. I enjoyed helping out and it felt good, and I felt good about myself whenever I did so. All of these tiny events at ACCS eventually led me to develop my leadership skills. Because of those skills, I was invited to many events in my freshman year, like the Youth Summit, Black Caucus, multiple clubs, which I then gained leadership within, and many hours of volunteer work. My dream is to go back to ANCCS, where I can continue showing their love and allowing kids to get the same leadership opportunities I did. ANCCS is a wonderful school and needs to have a building so we can finally be able to do some of the things that makes our school unique, and it makes us the native charter school. We would be grateful if you would allow us to live in the building that currently houses Abbott Loop if they were to close. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Matthew?
Hello, my name is Matthew Hancock. I'm a third grader at ANCCS. Going for all you do and listening to me. ANCCS needs a bigger building to fit all students so our classrooms don't overflow. We need a bigger space with a gym, library, a cafeteria, a art room with a sink, because now we just use wet towels instead of washing my hands. I wish we had a playground in a building of our own instead of borrowing another school's space, a place where my grandma can cut seals, and a gym where we can throw balls without breaking something or hitting someone walking by. If Abbott Loop is closed, can you please move ANCCS there? Koyana.
Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to call Deja and Tikva. Deja Stevens. Is it Tikva Barnes? Great, welcome. You have 3 minutes each. Hi.
Hello, everybody. I am Deja Stevens, a former student of Alaska Native Charter School, also known as ACCS. I thank you all for your time and this opportunity to speak. ACCS needs a new school building greatly. There are many reasons as to why they need a building, such as safety issues affecting high school and events. Having a K-8 in a high school building is not safe for the students. High schools have a higher chance of school shootings, fights, and more. We do not want these kids to be put in the crossfire. As a high school student, I first-handedly experienced how violent high schoolers could be. In my freshman year, we had a huge fight which resulted in a building lockdown. This affected ACCS as they were also put into lockdown and unsure what exactly happened until much later. If rumors were true that a student had a weapon, these kids would have been put in danger along with the high schoolers. A shooting warning also was issued last year from a student. It scared the parents and children at ACCS along with the students from East High School, had made a huge drop in attendance that day in both schools. As ACCS has taken the Upper Benson, it has affected Betty Davis East High School with the lack of classrooms. Many teachers have volunteered to let ACCS use their classrooms while they move to another. Many of these teachers had classes that normally have a large amount of students enrolled in them. So they don't have a classroom that would fit their class size. They had to settle for a smaller classroom. For example, my Spanish first class in freshman year was moving to a science class instead of a room better suited for a language class. Japanese class was moved to a smaller classroom and it was much too crowded for the students in freshman year. Not only is ACCS troubled with the issue of no building, East High School is also troubled with it. So if you please, Abbott Loop will be a great building for ACCS. Not only that, as Abby had mentioned, Culture Week is where I found my love of engineering, of making and building stuff. Kids are unable to find their skills and things that they love without some of these events ANCCS has held. Thank you.
And thank you. Tikva?
My name is Tikva Barnes, a high schooler and former student of Alaska Native Cultural Charter School. Thank you for giving us this opportunity and the time to speak. Alaska Native Cultural Charter School, or ANCCS, has been without a building since COVID, and it has impacted every detail of students' lives. When we got our own building in 2013, enrollment increased by 100 students. Now that we've lost our building, we lost students along with it. Classes are now half the size of what they were when we had a building. When we had a school, there was a wait list for every class, but now we only have people on a wait list for our middle school classes. If we were to be given a school again, more students could have the chance to learn about Alaska Native cultures like I did. Our school is the only one in the district that teaches Alaska Native history. Knowing the history of the land we are on is extremely important, and I feel lucky to have been allowed to study it. Other children deserve the opportunity to learn about the history of Alaska Native people and their cultures. Cramped in the upstairs of a high school, ANCCS barely has the room to function. Students don't have enough space for a PE class. They don't have a playground or a space to hold field day either. Getting active is extremely important to improve learning and mental health, or just for the kids to be kids. There isn't even enough room to have our preschool in the same place as the rest of our school, as our preschool is now in Mountain View. With the preschool totally separate from the rest of our school, it is difficult for kids to connect and build a community. ANCCS does not currently have a cafeteria either. There's no place for kids to get lunch, so they receive food from East High School's cafeteria and eat in their own classrooms. There's not a classroom for students to learn the Yupik language, an important subject that ANCCS has taught for a long time. On a more personal note, my dream is to become a teacher at ANCCS. I want to create a safe space for students the same way ANCCS created a safe space for me. I hope that when I return as a teacher, ANCCS has a place to call home. Without a proper building, there is no room for physical education, recess, a preschool, or a Yupik class. Additionally, there's been a large decrease in students since we lost our building. By providing ANCCS with a place to call our own, more students will be given the opportunity to learn about their cultures. Before you demolish the Abbott Loop Elementary School building, please consider the impact that building could have on our school. Thank you for your time.
And thank you. Thanks, both of you. Okay. I did that. Okay. Thank you. All right. Norman Beasley II on phone. Okay, I'll circle back. He's not on there yet. We are very early. Christine Harrington and Danielle Rhea. Come forward, please. Welcome. You have 3 minutes.
Hey there. My name is Christine Harrington, and I am a staff member at the Alaska Native Cultural Charter School. And tonight I am encouraging you to consider putting the idea of repurposing back on the table and providing ANCCS the opportunity to be housed in Abbott Loop Elementary in the event of a school closure. ANCCS, as you know, was displaced from its building due to the impacts of the COVID pandemic. And since then, the school has been housed in the temporary location of Betty Davis East High School. While we're grateful for this temporary space, it has had a significant disruption to our students, our families, and our staff. ANCCS is in dire need of a space of our own. It's necessary for our students to meet their full potential and for our community to thrive educationally, culturally, and socially. ANCCS is the only Title I public charter school in the Anchorage School District, and our students are provided with a strong sense of Alaska Native pride and values through Uyugak, the way of being. The safety of our students remains a great concern for our families and for our staff. On several occasions, we've gone into prolonged lockdowns and stay puts due to fights and other threats in the high school. Our hall is somewhat secluded, but high school still has access from 3 points of entry and share classes within the same hall. Student safety has contributed greatly to many families having to make the very hard decision to leave ANCCS until we do have a space of our own. The space, if you walk through the hall of ANCCS in our current location, you will find that our WIN groups are being held in hallways. Staff and those that provide educational services such as speech and language, occupational therapy, ELL sessions are working in cubicles located in the only open space that we have, which is also being used as our gym and our library. Our students don't have access to a gymnasium, to a playground, or a cafeteria. Our students do not have the space to practice and perform cultural dance and drumming, a place to host traditional gatherings and celebrations that are essential to the cultural teachings and learnings. In my position at ASD, I spend time at 6 other sites throughout the year, and there I often tell my colleagues that I have space envy. I have spent the past several months listening to the school board work sessions and meetings and many of the talks about capacity, so you know where the space envy is coming from. I visit buildings with many open classrooms, and I think of the students and staff in our building that are going without. I realize that the repurposing plan was not understood well by the community, but I see it as an opportunity for ASD to continue to serve its students. Our students are your students.
Thank you. Ms. Rhea.
Hi, I'm Danielle Rhea, the 2019 Alaska State Teacher of the Year and National Teacher of the Year finalist. You make a land acknowledgement at the beginning of every board meeting. What does that land acknowledgement truly mean to you? Do you know the names of the other Indigenous people who have lived across Alaska's vast lands since time immemorial? I'm thankful for your acknowledgement of the Athabaskan Eklutna-Dina-Ina people for their stewardship of these lands. I hope you will acknowledge that the Alaska Native Cultural Charter School is the only school in our district that teaches students about every Indigenous group from our state, including language, history, values, subsistence practices, traditional art forms, and how westernized education is connected to all academic content through the Native ways of knowing. You have acknowledged this land. It is time to acknowledge Alaska Native Cultural Charter School's 15 years of academic and community success. We have been rechartered for 10 more years, and we've been honored with many prestigious awards for teaching and learning, and including the National Title I School for closing the gap in learning for an underserved population. And yet our students are still underserved without a school building. You must recognize how not having a school building is affecting ANCCS's morale, academic success, and enrollment. We have lost 100 students because parents do not want their young children in a high school that has had lockdowns for violence. We used to have a waiting list for every grade. Now we only have waiting lists for 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. Students and families who have chosen our charter school want to be in a safe place that has all the accommodations that every other ASD student has. A gym, a playground, a cafeteria, a library, a place to call our own. The staff and administration at ASD and Betty Davis East High have been accommodating and kind stewards to our ANCCS family. We need a place that we can steward, where we can grow with our families and provide what all students deserve, a home. Please support us in having a home. As you go forward with supporting Aquarian Charter School with $4 million to renovate their home, and before you decide to demolish Abbott Loop Elementary, please afford ANCCS the opportunity to steward a home, whether it's Abbott Loop, Wonder Park, or a new site. We are diligently fundraising and working towards finding a place to thrive, rebuild, be safe, and have what every ASD student needs and deserves, a home. Kind regards and thanks for listening.
And thank you very much. Let's have Elizabeth Hancock and Michael Patterson. Sorry. Welcome. You have 3 minutes each.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Hancock. I am one of the founding parents of the Alaska Native Cultural Charter School. I currently teach middle school language arts there. I have graduated 3 children from ANCCS, and you heard my youngest Matthew speak. He is currently a 3rd grader at ANCCS. Quiana, for your service to the students in the Anchorage community and for taking the time to hear me speak. I have had the privilege of being involved with ANCCS since the very beginning, and we have always had to do more with less. Throughout all of this, ANCCS's community has remained a tight community where our students thrive because we meet them on a cultural level before challenging them academically. Alaska Native education is multi-generational. Our older students are role models for the younger students, and we encourage elders to spend time in our classroom because this speaks to the importance of education. The Alaska Native community also takes care of each other. ANCCS has been able to do this through family nights where we have fundraised for our families or even for rural Alaska schools. We have managed to do this in all of our various locations, but each one has had its challenges. Our location in Betty Davis East High School, but it has come at a cost. Parents have justifiable safety concerns due to the nature of a high school housing a kindergarten through 8th grade school. Our students have recess in a courtyard, PE in a lobby, art in a classroom with no sink, and small groups are held in cubicles where PE is being taught simultaneously. I was extremely encouraged when the district announced plans to repurpose existing buildings due to low enrollment. Until we moved into Betty Davis East High School, ANCCS did not have that issue of low enrollment. We had waiting lists for almost every grade. Families chose our program because the cultural component is missing from neighborhood schools, and ANCCS has a unique opportunity to use ingrained knowledge, which has shown the best way for Alaska Native students to learn. Koyana, for your constant and continued support in helping ANCCS raise future leaders like the ones you just heard tonight.
Thank you very much. Mr. Patterson.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today. And I just want to point out that last time I spoke at a school board meeting, it was for the proposal for the land acknowledgements. And I also would like to double down on the fact that, you know, a lot of elected officials, a lot of government officials in Anchorage will parade how they love to do land acknowledgements and how important Indigenous culture is and how important it is to protect it and promote it. But then when it comes to actually getting receipts and seeing actual action, there's not a lot. There's not a lot. And as a parent of a first grader at ANCCS, I can say, and this is his first year there, I was super excited that he was going to be in the school because my son is Afro-Indigenous and culture is very important in my family and he needs to learn all his cultures. And I was greatly disappointed that when I found out that the school was basically in the equivalent of a closet for a school building for East. And I know that East, and I know that, you know, there's a lot of support for the school and the community, but it's just not really acceptable as a parent that my child doesn't have a cafeteria, doesn't have a playground, doesn't have a gym, and that the educational professionals that I rely on to educate him don't have their own space. And the fact that, I mean, my wife and I spoke to my son earlier today, and he has said, yes, high school students will say inappropriate things to them. They will get flipped off. They will not be treated. It's not acceptable. And as a parent of an Indigenous student, I feel like I'm being asked to sacrifice my son's safety for of education that's founded in culture. And it's not a good position to be put in. And also, you know, and I'm gonna try to stay positive, but, you know, being told that a school is going to be demolished while my son and his fellow students are essentially schooled in a wing of a different high school or of a different school, it really makes me upset. It makes me incredibly upset. And, you know, I know elected officials will say these land acknowledgements, but, you know, if you all don't find a building for these kids, that land acknowledgement doesn't mean anything. It's just something you say. It's just rhetoric, and it means literally nothing. I think, and especially with the history of education in Alaska and how it was used to destroy Indigenous culture, there's actually a school in the city that does the exact opposite of that. And so you have a professional responsibility and a moral responsibility to find a school for these kids that's appropriate and acceptable and safe. And, you know, here's your opportunity to do it, and you should take it. And if you don't, well, then you guys are elected officials. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's have Cynthia Patterson. I think it's Gauchapin Patterson. And then Jay McDonald. Whenever you're ready.
You got my last name right, so thank
Oh,
you.
thank
That was
you.
actually perfect. So I have a son over at ANCCS as well as Michael is my husband. And yes, pretty much all of the things that he just said, I can attest to. We were really, really excited to have our son have the opportunity to go to ANCCS, to be, enveloped in his culture and also to get, all his basic Common Core learning done as well. I didn't realize when we enrolled him that he was going to be in East High School. I had thought that they had a building over on East Side because I had driven past there before and I just assumed that was still their building. Nonetheless, we still wanted him to go to this school because it was really important for us to have that cultural element for him. But they don't have their own gym. They don't have their own cafeteria. They don't have their own library. They literally have just, it seems like one hallway that is classrooms on either side and then a very small common area where they have to do a bunch of stuff in that one area. It's really unfair to the kids. It's really unfair to the staff. My hope is that you guys consider, Abbott Loop as an option. And if for some reason that doesn't work out, then at least by the beginning of this coming school year, you guys will have them in a building somewhere that's appropriate. Like I said, like Michael was saying, our son has said he's seen some, inappropriate things from older students that not within his school, but, within East High School. I don't want that to continue. I would hope you guys can get them in a better space. And with that said, as all the negative that has been said about, them being in that small area, we would still have our son continue to go to school there next year, for second grade, if that was the only option, just because the staff is so great and what he's learning there is so valuable to us.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let's see, Jay McDonald. And let's see, is Norman Beasley on the line? You can come back to him. Yes, welcome. You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, so my name is Jay McDonald. To start off with, I'm really perplexed that the first book that I came in here and read for the board was removed from every Anchorage school that it was in except for Bartlett without any explanation given. And that was perplexing because there's a process to go through for reviewing and removing books that wasn't followed. There wasn't any explanation given on why it was removed or what steps were taken or really anything to do with those details. And then at the same time, it stayed in Bartlett. So if there's nothing wrong with the book, why was it removed? If there is something wrong with the book, why is it still in Bartlett? With no explanation given, it's just kind of strange. And it's easy to say that some of these things, like some of these books, like the one that I'm going to look at today, it's just got a small passage in it that's a little bit off or strange. But if it's not a big deal, then why is it so important that these things are included in the book to begin with? And why are these books all showing up as part of award-winning packages within the past 2 to 3 years? And on that note too, we just went through a 2-year fight with, certain people in this town. Whenever Judy Elledge was appointed to be chief librarian over at LUSAC, we had a huge knockdown, drag-out fight for 2 years about how important it is that we have trained, qualified, skillful librarians. It's not the janitor in the back that's just randomly ordering books out of a catalog. So it's very clear that these books are being reviewed and ordered for specific reasons. So I got a copy of the graphic adaptation of Anne Frank's diary. And we've got a passage in here. She's talking about having her period and all those things. But then it goes into a part where she's in bed with one of her friends. I think she's 11 years old in this passage. She says, "I had these feelings even before my period. I remember particularly one night when I spent the night at Jackie's. Jackie, could we show each other our breasts?" Why?
Mr. McDonald, could you give us the page? We have students who are sitting in the audience tonight.
This is in elementary schools. If it's appropriate there, why isn't it appropriate here?
Could you give us the page number and the name of the book so that we can look at what you're, and there, like you said, there is a process.
They're checking it out unsupervised at our elementary schools. It's Anne Frank's diary, the graphic adaptation.
I got the title.
Okay. I don't think it's appropriate to interrupt me when I'm reading materials that are in our schools. If they're appropriate for schools, why aren't they appropriate for the school board?
I think it's inappropriate for you to read things in front of our students who are here.
This is in schools down to grade level kindergarten.
That doesn't mean they have access to it, sir.
Okay. Am I able to finish my testimony or?
Sure, you have 30 seconds. Put 30 seconds more on the clock, please.
Okay, well, I guess I can't continue reading this book. So the questions I was going to ask, it's in elementary schools. Is this really age appropriate for minors? You might say, well, you know, it's not really, so maybe it's okay that it's in the high schools. But if you think about, like, well, why do we need adults or high schoolers reading these, books with depicting minors down to like 11 to 14 years old engaging in sexual conduct, sexual acts? Is that really something that we want our high school kids to be? It's just, there's many editions, many adaptations of this book. There's plenty that don't have this material in it. It just feels unnecessary. And this is an intentional decision that was made in the past 2 years.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, we have Manny Acuna. Okay, I'm sorry if I said that wrong. And Tracy Deering. Welcome. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Welcome. My name is Manny Acuna, and I am the Academic Policy Committee Board President for the Alaska Native Cultural Charter School, or ANCCS for short. ANCCS is in desperate need of a home. Our school has been displaced since 2021, and the last few years have shown it is imperative that we operate in a building of our own. We are currently located on the second floor of Betty Davis East High and don't know when we'll be able to move out due to lack of funds and limited real estate in the district that can suit our needs. Being housed at Betty Davis East High presents many challenges for ANCCS that include limited space, no gymnasium, no cafeteria, no playground, bullying from high schoolers, and that's just to name a few. Yet our community stays strong. Why? Because our school is worth it. Our students, families, and staff know it, and that is why we continue to put up with these conditions in hopes that one day ANCCS will finally get the building it deserves. We provide our students with a strong sense of identity and Alaska Native pride, but our cultural mission is being destroyed. Many of the activities like Alaska Native drumming and dancing we are accustomed to practicing, we've had to temporarily put on hold because it doesn't coincide in a high school environment and is considered a disruption. Our school is special, and I truly believe it has the potential to be the premier school in the state. We just need a chance. The children of ANCCS matter, and I am tired of seeing them fall through the cracks. We are the only Title I charter school in the district, yet we are also the only charter school without a building of their own. The Anchorage School District, or the Anchorage School Board, has the unique opportunity to help ANCCS during these troubling times. Abbaloop Elementary is the only school tentatively scheduled for closure, but this doesn't have to be. Allow ANCCS to temporarily move in. We would be liable for all the maintenance and utility costs, saving the school district money, and ANCCS would have a safe and conducive environment to house our students and staff. We are chartered for 310 students currently, and we only have about 236 because of being located at East High. If we were to move to Abbaloop Elementary, it's a possibility that families who are already attending the school could continue to send their children there if they choose. Our school welcomes diversity and is open to everyone. It could be a winning solution for all parties involved. We need a space conducive to fulfilling the unique needs of our pre-K through 8th grade students, families, and staff. This is necessary for our students to meet their full potential and for our school's community to thrive educationally, socially, and culturally. Students of ANCCS must be provided with a learning environment that is safe and welcoming. We need your help. We welcome an opportunity to meet with you. Kuyana.
Kuyana, thank you. Ms. Deering.
Good evening. My name is Tracy Deering. I'm a student alumni, Gladys Wood, Mears and Diamond, graduated 92, started with the school district as a TA in 93. Have been with the school district for nearly 30 years, both as a teacher's assistant and currently as an intervention coach. During the height of COVID, we made memorandums to our contracts so that we could exclude some of our substitute teachers and have our TAs and our other support staff cover for our teachers when they were out to get an extra $10 an hour, which was fabulous and it worked. We are at the point now, though, we need our subs back. My understanding is, and I haven't checked the numbers, that we cut down to about 10% of what we had originally, from approximately 3,000 subs to about 300. There are positions going open constantly. There are special education classrooms being covered by non-certificated staff. We need help. We're burning out, especially the special education classrooms, especially the life skills classrooms. I am currently in a life skills 2 classroom. My teacher went out with a knee replacement on the 14th of December. I don't expect her back anytime soon, and there's no substitute. There's also currently no TA. She's out on other medical stuff. And because I work in the school I do, it's hard to get subs even when we have a full complement of subs. I work at Whaley. It's hard to get people in there. They hear the name and they automatically get scared. We need your help. Those memorandums, they need to go away and we need to rehire some subs. We need to put out some kind of call for substitute teachers the same way we did for bus drivers. Otherwise, we're going to be burning out our staff and we're going to be losing the really, really good staff who care enough to do 2 jobs at once for a third of the pay that a substitute makes. That's all.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that concludes our first hour of public comment. We will take a brief 5-minute recess for a comfort break. We'll be right back. So, about that. How the change is supposed to find knowledge, right?
Yeah. I mean, they could use district space if we allow them to.
Testing. We'd like to welcome everybody back. And if there is any written public comments, they will be attached to the agenda, and you can access those through board docs. Okay. Oh, I'm still missing 2 board members. Welcome. Okay. All right. All right. Well, Member Donnelly is on the premises. He will be in here shortly. This brings us to item E on our agenda, the consent agenda. There are no consent agenda items tonight. And so we will now move to item F, which is our action item, memorandum number 044.
Madam President, I move to approve ASD Memorandum 044 to approve and authorize the superintendent to award a guaranteed maximum price or GMP contract modification for the construction of the Aquarian Charter School renovations to Cornerstone General Contractors, Inc. in the amount of $4,175,688.
Second.
Okay, moved in second to approve memorandum number 44, award of negotiated guarantee maximum price for Aquarian Charter School renovations. Is there anyone who'd like to speak? I'm sorry. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam President. I think it would be helpful if Chief Operating Officer Jim Anderson provided some context for this item in preparation for any other questions that might arise.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, good evening. So when you look at the memo and you go through it, and most of you are aware that we put a roof on a couple summers ago as the start. And when you look at everything in Board Memo 044, it really does extend the usable life of this building to 15 years plus. There are no viable options to relocate Aquarian to any other location at this time. All upgrades to this building have been closely coordinated between CPNC, the Aquarian leadership, and APC. And Charlie Peters, the PM, is here tonight for any detailed questions. He knows that building probably as well as he knows his family at this point. But as a result, the administration does recommend approval of Board Memo 044 with the assumption that Aquarian would remain in this facility for the foreseeable future.
Thank you. Are there any questions before we vote? Any questions, comments? Member Jacobs?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. So I guess a follow-up to Mr. Anderson. I understand that we say for the foreseeable future, we think Aquarian will remain in place. Is the location that Aquarian's currently in part of as a district, our long-term portfolio? I mean, is that something the district would use if Aquarian weren't currently in the building?
We did not put that facility, we did not look at that for a recommended closure or consolidation in either round 1 or round 2. If in fact this board memo gets approved and the conditions change in the out years as to what other uses we could use for that facility, we'd look at it then. But right now, because we have no other viable option for that school and no other plan, we have not put forth a lot of effort to try to figure out what we would do with that building if vacated.
Does it belong to the ASD? I mean, it's a municipality building, but
it's one of our facilities.
One of our facilities.
Okay. It is.
Follow up.
And as I stated, once we've got the roof, you replace the heaters, the doors, windows, all the other outside things that we're going to do for this facility, it would extend the life for 15 years.
Okay. Follow-up, Member Jacobs.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. I guess a follow-up. We heard from members of the Aquarian APC late last year that they were preferring that we delay this item till tonight to see through the school closure conversation. Has anyone checked in with the APC? Are they in support of the board passing this tonight?
I don't know that that direct conversation has occurred, but what has happened with Charlie Peters, the PM, is that the APC has picked several of the deferred items that are not part of this contract and have offered to pay for those items out of fund balance to increase the usability of this building. So my assumption is if they're willing to invest their own funds into this building, that that the answer to that is almost certainly yes.
Okay, thank you. Member Higgins.
Thank you. I do know in my brief discussion with some members with the committee that of course there was a tremendous amount of interest in being able to go into an ASD school if we vacated that. And so while I appreciate your comment that we're doing this with an expectation long term, if we start closing schools and there are options here from a safety standpoint and operational standpoint, I don't want my vote to be interpreted that I'm going to vote against given that opportunity if circumstances change. I think it's a good investment right now based on our current forecast of what we're doing with school closures. But if circumstances change and there's a better decision, even though we've invested in the building, I'm still going to be putting whatever the kids are first. And if that involves opportunities that don't exist today, I don't want it to be interpreted that I'm voting with that understanding.
Okay, thank you. Member Jacobs.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. I think Member Higgins articulated, I guess, maybe the reasoning or the underlying concern regarding one of my questions, which is that, we haven't, we talked, when we approved our guidance at the last meeting for the FY24 budget, we talked about how we were going to have additional conversations around what closures might look like for future rounds, if the board was going to pursue that after, hopefully, in my opinion, engaging in a more thorough community engagement process here through hopefully a committee structure, but that's again a separate item. If that ends with us potentially moving Aquarian out of this building and us not having another purpose for this building, I guess I'm wondering if we should spend this money now or wait to see what the rest of the closure conversation takes shape among the board here in the months to come. I don't want to be in a place where in 12 months we're wishing we had this funding back for another purpose if it could be identified. So that's kind of I guess the underlying concern there.
Dr. Bryant.
If I could just interject, so to the points made by several board members, of course, if conditions change in the future, that would be something that we'd be willing to talk about. But we did just want to state for the record that this would be investing a substantial amount of funding into that building. So we will need to have some sort of plan for that building if conditions were to change. And to your point, Member Jacobs, I may ask Jim Anderson to chime in here. I believe there are some fairly time-sensitive things that need to be replaced in that building. So to delay that, I would just worry about the academic experience of students if there are things that need to be replaced. So Mr. Anderson, could you chime in about what exactly this item entails?
Roger. And to clarify, when I stated that we would assume as an administration for the foreseeable future that they would stay there, it means that we would not put them in a different facility on a CIP, nor would that be expected this year. I think in the last 5 years, there are so many conditions that have changed so dramatically, sometimes overnight. Plus the school board that voted in 2018 on school start times is a completely different school board than today's school board. So you can never commit future school boards when conditions change to make different decisions. But there are some things that we do recommend that we should do. If you were to look at the bid, there's several things that are either based off recent events with the fire and then the fire alarm after that, which weren't directly related. But we think we should fix the furnaces if we had the funds to fix them and the other safety items, and would recommend doing that. Again, when you extend the building life to 15 years, the fact that we don't have multiple contingency plans for other uses for that building, it doesn't mean that it's not worth this investment in order to improve the quality of education for those students.
Thank you. Seeing no other hands, Member Jacobs.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. To be clear, I support any investment that needs to be made to provide a quality learning environment and a safe learning environment for this year. Again, my underlying concern is if we are wishing we had some of these funds back in less than 12 months. And so I guess out of the items listed, the design, the pre-construction services, the roof upgrade, et cetera, going down what's in the memorandum, is there, which of those elements are time sensitive? Is it all of them that are appropriate and necessary to get us through this year?
I think we have time to bring the team forward. Charlie gets a mic.
Oh, yeah. So was it green? I'm good. Yep. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Time sensitive items. That was a question, right? Once we, or if we approve it tonight, we still got to go through, we got to get the contracts. We got to get all the signatures on that. That takes a little bit of time. And then we got to work with the contractor on material orders and deliveries. That always takes time as well. So I'm uncertain exactly where the materials are right now because we've held off the contractor until we make the decision from the board, because we don't want to invest anymore on the pre-construction services until we make a decision. So since, let's see, October 18th and I think 11/1, we've been waiting for a decision to be made so that we can move forward with that.
And to clarify, the contractor hasn't procured materials without a contract. They haven't done a lot of things that they normally would have done by now. So there will be a learning stage and resetting expectations once Charlie's able to work with that contractor.
Follow up?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. So thinking long term, I guess, from a safety standpoint, from a quality of learning standpoint, if this board knew for certain that, and we won't have that certainty tonight, but theoretically, if we knew for certain that this facility wouldn't be utilized by Aquarian or another program after the 23-24 school year, would these investments still be appropriate and a wise use of public funds?
It would depend on what we used it for, right? I mean, there's so many possible uses when you first asked. I mean, we always have storage requirements. We could look at things like early childhood centers or there could be so many different options. We just have not put the analysis into that building and actually looked at every classroom to determine its full potential uses for the district. And frankly, we probably wouldn't, just out of curiosity, unless it looked like we were headed that direction.
Follow up?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. I'll let this be my last one, I guess. I guess I've gotten pretty good at counting to 4. And so I think when we were originally discussing this a couple months back, it seemed to be that there was 4 votes in support of getting Aquarian a permanent home inside a repurposed ASD campus. And administration has made clear that they plan to at least consider proposing future rounds and recommendations of building repurpose options. And so if that happens here within the next 12 months, I think that Aquarian will likely get serious consideration from this board, whether I support it or not. And so that's kind of the underlying hesitancy, but I've exhausted my line of questioning and I appreciate all the answers and the information. So unless there's some other point of interest on this. I think personally, I would feel comfortable waiting a bit longer till we had kind of a more strategic vision conversation for how we want to handle future closure conversations before making any non-urgent safety investments for our students at that location. But I could be an opinion of one on that. So thank you.
Member Higgins.
It appears that most of the investments here is prudent for the property, no matter what we do. It looks like it. And so accordingly, that's an issue. Give me 1 second while I hang up this phone call that's beeping in my ears. Along those lines, I remember when this first came up for discussion, it was, we've already invested some monies to upgrades to changes, and the kids are doing good academically, so it didn't fall. That's not going to be my criteria. I'm just being upfront about it. Maybe I won't say.
Oops.
What happened?
Yeah, you're right. You're good now.
Is it working now? I thought maybe that was deliberate. What am I doing? What are you doing?
It's not me.
Keep your hands up, Morgo. But I'm just letting you know, my criteria is not based upon past investments, and it's not based upon how well the kids are doing. It's what's best for that group. And Aquarium has not been in the best facility. We had the fire, we had the damages. It's got risk factors associated with it. I don't think we can wait to address most of those, because this thing may go on for years. But we recognize that. There may not be a lot of school closures will close. We just don't know. But I just don't, like I said, I just wanted to address if we invest in this is the way it's going to go forward in the future, because when things change, I'm going to be very advocating for charter schools to get a safer place, and Aquarium's high on that list.
Thank you. Not seeing any other comments. Oh, did you have it? Okay. Let's do a vote. Thank you, guys.
Madam President, I'm not sure if you saw that I had my hand raised.
I'm sorry, Member Wilson. I did not see you. There you are.
There was a question the Member Jacobs asked that I wasn't clear on the answer. It is for the team, so I apologize that they already walked away. Are all of the repairs and upgrades on the list considered urgent, or is it just a portion? So is this an all or none kind of amount that we're looking to vote on?
I think I can answer that. So you would be voting on the not to exceed max cost of the repairs for the facility with this board memo. As Charlie starts working with the contractor, we find out that some things may not even be available for extended periods of time. He'll be working with the APC. He'll be working with the principal, and there likely could be some contract modifications. If you recall, in August when we talked about this, when we delay it, also from a contractor's perspective, that individual company can't indefinitely hold that price as a valid price, because conditions for them change as well. And we've seen that throughout COVID, as certain things were just simply no longer available, or now they become available. So it really is a negotiation with Charlie, the contractor, working with the APC and the leadership to determine what will ultimately be able to get fixed. And if certain things aren't available, then we can work with the APC, if there's funding, on some of those deferred items that they really did want corrected, and maybe modify the scope that way. But it really is the board voting on the max cost, which is 4.175, to be able to start that process moving forward.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Member Wilson?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President, can I get back in the queue?
Sure. We were getting ready to vote, so why don't you go on?
Sure, thank you. So I guess what my last comment would be, then, knowing we're voting on the upper limit maximum, I'm assuming administration will keep in mind that, that the way things were headed with Aquarian, likely to be seriously considered to receive a repurposed building. I'm hoping that that's clear. I'm hoping that, we're also keeping eyes wide open that this board, to this date at least, as far as I can tell, hasn't endorsed hasn't given a full-throated endorsement to the idea of a pre-K center and not versus combining and opening up more of our classrooms inside currently used buildings for pre-K. And the idea that we still need to have that closure conversation. So I hope we're keeping all these things eyes wide open as we commit to spending these funds, with the idea that we still have an $800 million deferred maintenance backlog. Minor maintenance items are still in the thousands. And so there's definitely other purposes for these funds. And so that was my area of interest. So thank you. I can vote yes with that guidance.
Thank you. I will withhold my comment so that we can vote.
Member Lessons?
Yes.
Member Wilson?
Yes.
Member Holloman?
Yes.
Member Jacobs?
Yes.
Member Higgins? Member Donley?
Yes.
President Bellamy?
Yes. And that motion passes unanimously. That's memorandum number 044. Thank you. We have non-action items are next. They'll come back to you next week. Week after next, our next meeting. We have no more public comment. That brings us to the superintendent's update.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, ASD board and ASD community. It's great to be back after a wonderful holiday season that was filled with recharging and reflection. It goes without saying that last semester was filled with a number of unprecedented challenges. And while we have much work to be done on the front of our budget and other operational issues, I am also energized to do what needs to be done to meet our ambitious goals and to put ASD in a strong position for the years to come. So first off, I do want to recognize for the public a number of new members to the ASD senior leadership team that you probably noticed earlier today. So first off, Mr. Marty Lang is the district's new Chief of Human Resources, having previously served as Director of High Schools. Jim Anderson, as you gathered, likely you realize that he is our new Chief Operating Officer after having served as CFO for a number of years. And I also want to recognize Mr. Holland's great leadership during a truly unprecedented semester as acting COO. So thank you. Additionally, I want to recognize that Andy Ratliff, who the board is very familiar with, has been promoted to Chief Financial Officer from Senior Director within Finance. And as we've shared previously, Mr. Sven Gustafson has officially transitioned to Chief Academic Officer after a very seamless handing of the baton from Dr. Stock and team. And then also joining Academic Services is our new Assessment and Evaluation Senior Director, Mr. Chris Opitz, who's previously our TACU Principal. Fantastic one at that. So with that said, this team is new, and it's also completely aligned on the priorities, which include the board's goals and guardrails and retaining and attracting talent to ASD. So we're ready to hit the ground running in 2023 and to do whatever it takes to achieve our goals. So I've personally been blown away by the caliber of talent throughout our organization. And with this new group, we will be laser focused on the North Star, which is ensuring that ASD will be among the top performing urban districts of our size. So with that said, the budget challenges aside, we have a real opportunity to make decisions that could provide greater opportunities for students. Some of these upcoming discussions and decision points could be around a shift of 6th grade to middle school district-wide. It could also be, following up on our conversation this afternoon, a shift of school start times, and also reimagining our approach to curriculum and instruction. And on the subject of curriculum, as I recently shared with the board in last week's Board Connect, ASD is eligible for approximately $3.8 million in grant funds from the state to fund the cost of implementing a new ELA curriculum. So while the decision to ultimately adopt the curriculum will be made by the board, I have asked staff to closely examine this opportunity. The state has curated a list of 4 vetted options for curriculum, and in the coming weeks, groups of ASD teachers and staff will closely review and compare them so the administration can provide a recommendation to the board on how to proceed. I will keep you posted on that. On a different note, I do want to state that the Abbott Loop community is at the forefront of staff's and my mind, and we are committed to implementing a plan that ensures students, families, and staff receive robust support and resources throughout the spring and beyond, should the campus be closed next school year. Tonight, I just wanted to share that this planning is taking place with the board, and I will consult with Madam President on the best time and format for the board to receive more detailed information on how exactly we'll be supporting Abbott Loop students and families through a transition. And given tonight's testimony, there may also be interest in understanding the considerations of repurposing the building versus demolition as the administration previously recommended, and we can prepare for that conversation as well. Lastly, I do want to restate to the community that our snow day makeup plan proposal is still a go. Our plan will receive final review from DEED, and I will also put this before the board for review this month. And just to recap, the plan includes replacing the teacher conferences scheduled for February 22nd and 23rd with full days of instruction. 2, replacing the teacher in-service days scheduled for February 24th with a full day of instruction. And then 3, adding 30 minutes to the school day for all grade levels beginning January 30th through March 9th. We propose the instructional day end 30 minutes later in the day. So all of that to say, conversations with union leadership on this topic have occurred and will occur this week. And once those are complete, I expect we'll have logistical specifics to share with our employees. And we'll also begin a robust communications campaign so that families and the broader community are made aware of what this proposal entails. And also, as I shared, we will be much better positioned to implement remote learning should future weather events occur this semester. That concludes my report.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Bryant. Questions? Member Jacobs.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. Thank you to Dr. Bryant for the update on Abbott Loop. I appreciate it. I think it definitely needs to be our district's priority that we keep those students and families well taken care of through the transition that we've tentatively approved. I found the testimony tonight from the ANCCS community very motivating, and I had the opportunity to tour the current facility, which really does equate to kind of a half of a hallway inside Betty Davis East Anchorage High School earlier this year with Principal Sweetser. I think the term common room was used to describe kind of the gym area. I think it's pretty generous. I think from an architectural standpoint, it's probably best described as like a hallway atrium. We need to collaborate with their APC to find a long-term solution to the extent that we can assist them. Is repurposing the building something administration's considered, and is that something that administration would be interested in having a board straw poll on, like we did earlier in our work session, to have something formally considered and proposed in front of the board?
Thank you, Member Jacobs. Through the president, at a high level, I will say that earlier in our conversations around Abbott Loop specifically was the high cost of replacing the sprinkler system. I think that what was initially led to our proposal of a demolition versus repurposing. But I will ask COO Jim Anderson to comment further in terms of feasibility and desire for more information from the board.
Thanks, Dr. Bryant. So the very first charter school that the administration looked at for any repurpose plan was ANCCS when we developed the initial round 1 reductions, because we were well aware of the challenges they're having at Betty Davis East High at trying to provide an optimal education environment. If we had only proposed Abbott Loop and no other schools for closure, it is likely that we would have recommended moving ANCCS there, but we had a list of 6. We came up with all of our repurpose plans, and Abbott Loop, if we were to completely renovate or rebuild that school, it was so cost prohibitive, and we had no legitimate repurpose plan, knowing that if we stay in there, we really want to fix the fire suppression system. And that's why we recommended that we would declare it excess and give it back to the city. Again, if that was the only school, we may very well have looked at renovating it with the fire suppression system and putting them there. They were our first highest priority charter school for relocation. I do want to point out one thing on the fire suppression system. We did go out for bid last spring, and I don't know how many board members remember, but we had 0 bids on it. We would have to devise a strategy that would maximize the chance of getting a vendor or a contractor to do that work. But we've already talked about it behind the scenes, and we'll develop a way ahead if this is the path the board wants to go.
Madam President, could I follow up?
Sure.
So I would thank you, Mr. Anderson, Dr. Bryant. I appreciate the feedback. I think that just from a basic high level, from a board level at least, there seems to be a potential match there with the board's greenlit, tentatively speaking, one potential closure. ANCCS is, in my opinion, in dire need of a home. It's my understanding in conversation during our break with members of the APC that their long-term desire is to have their own building closer to where their families are in East Anchorage. So there might be a chance for at least a short-term partnership there that would benefit students. And so I would be I guess I would urge us to consider having those conversations, and if that's something that we would have a board straw poll for, I would support that. I would support that conversation, and then if nothing can't be worked out, it's understood. But to not seriously examine that to the degree that we haven't yet, I think is potentially a missed opportunity. And so I guess a follow-up question I have is, we need to have a more thorough briefing on this for sure, but with transitioning from a pure closure to a repurpose for Abbott Loop for at least a short-term home for ANCCS, would that broaden our FY24 fiscal gap?
Mr. Anderson?
Because they would be picking up the maintenance costs and the utilities costs, I didn't refigure out the numbers, but we would still have an overall cost savings, not counting capital improvements, of somewhere in the 700 plus range for the first couple of years. So it would not negatively impact our budget in any way.
So my vote to consolidate Abbott Loop was primarily influenced by the fact that we were going to demolish that building, that it was too expensive for us to put more money into Abbott Loop, and it was essentially unsafe. So now what I'm hearing is an interest to put the money in the building, still move Abbott Loop families, put money in this building, and then move in Anchorage charter, Native Cultural Charter School. Is that what I'm hearing?
To provide some clarity, adding in the fire suppression system, which was voter approved a few years ago, that is not the same as many of the refurbishment projects on Aquarian that significantly extended the life of that facility. It wouldn't be a 20-year plan to move ANCCS into this building without looking at the future of additional costs, or if other facilities come open at some point in the future, potentially moving them again to a structure that required less money.
Member Higgins.
Well, I appreciate this. I remember discussions with Abbott Loop, and originally it was they had to raise the roof and do everything else, and so the only way to do it was go ahead and build a new school. Then they said there's a way to go around it, so the cost came way down to be able to meet the fire code requirements. We were always concerned the fire chief was going to close the school because it wasn't meeting the requirements and it needed to be higher, and there were changes. But now at this point, I don't know what the cost estimate was when we went out for bid to fix the fire suppression system, but it's not involved with renovating totally the school or building a new school type of cost. It was a lot lower. It wasn't as high. In regards to the ANCCS, it's kind of interesting with the native school, Alaska Native School, is that at least in the past, that has been viewed as one of our top performing charter schools when you look at the demographics. And we do comparisons of people attending that compared to regular schools, they did exceptionally high. And so if you separate out just how high are they doing, look at the same population within the school and within the how well ANCCS is doing. It was a big improvement. It was good. So I think providing some type of support in that regards is something I want to clearly support. And if I didn't know they would want to go that far away from where they are right now, but it's something I hope that we look into because that they need that help. And it's a popular school. And they've also, at one point, they looked at the population and saw a lot of population in the South unmet with this. And there was some discussion a long time ago, because I was on the board 2009, 2010 timeframe, where they talked about maybe having 2 separate schools just to meet the population demand of what they wanted to do. So I appreciate all the feedback on this. And I just want to share that I don't see, because we're going to vote, different issues out there, but I think this is an important point for discussion in the future with ANCCS to be supportive of them. I think it's important.
Member Jacobs.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. I guess there's still plenty to discuss, and so that's where I'm wondering if we want to. Obviously, this is an agenda item tonight, so I'm just wondering if maybe administration would be interested in, in an informal straw poll whether or not they want to invest.
Future discussions. Item J. Board member comments. Let's start to my left this time. Member Higgins. And I do have a timer. No, I'm joking.
I tell people the 3-minute rule is referred to as the Pat Higgins rule, so it's okay. I appreciate that. I just want to, a couple of things. One is I always appreciate it when students come and testify in front of us, and they did a great job tonight, and I really appreciate that. I also appreciate what the ANCCS has accomplished, and like I made reference in regards to some of the data I've seen in the past. I haven't seen the most recent data, but when you compare the demographics and you compare the other, it has in the past been the top performing charter school that we actually have in Anchorage. And that's a big congratulations on that. I offer my congratulations and on the recent promotion and changes that are taking place in the superintendent's immediate staff. I'm real pleased with some of the changes that are taking place. I think that's going to be a real strong team that I look forward to getting their support in regards to board actions as well. But I'm real pleased with what I'm seeing, and I think we're headed in the right direction. And last comment, this was a little different tonight. What was different? It seems like we actually talked about academics a little bit more. I don't know. I could be missing that. Whether we talk about it with school times, if we talk about the curriculum change, and we talk about the impact on these, I look forward to that being more of a discussion rather than what we're going to do with the current budget and how we're going to go forward with focus on the kids. And I think that's a real positive move, and I'm appreciative of that. Appreciate the superintendent bringing it up as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Jacobs.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. I'll be brief. Wanted to welcome students, staff, and families back to the second semester here. I know my teenagers were not especially thrilled. They adjusted, I think, as the day went on. I think they're now soundly sleeping. Wanted to congratulate all those in administration who received new positions, and thank you, Dr. Bryan, for forming a really quality team. I did want to single out Mr. Holland. I think he was on the receiving end of many of my phone calls, and so probably more than most. So kudos, and it was a pleasure working with you. I'm looking forward to many more conversations. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Dunley.
over a decade ago, when the district would move to be prepared to adopt and study new curriculum, there'd be a survey of teachers and a survey of parents seeking their recommendations. In fact, a committee would be formed and pick like a certain number of possible recommendations and then go out, and there was a survey conducted by the district. I'm starting to think it's time to return to that kind of a format to gain more student and public input into our curriculum process.
Okay, thank you. Member Wilson, do you have any comments?
I do. I'll keep it brief as well. I really hope everyone enjoyed their holiday break and their time with their families. ASD Connect publishes on Friday. There will be details on the snow closure makeup plan, a recap of the work session, information on changing school the possibility of changing school start times, a recap of the regular meeting, and more. And our next communication committee meeting is scheduled for Thursday, January 26th at noon. Thank you.
And thank you. All right, Member Lessons.
I will not be brief, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak. First of all, I drove my kids to school today. I really appreciated the efforts that went into making the driving route wider. It was significantly safer from many perspectives. And I even noticed that the front of we talk a lot about roofs in here and maintaining them. And I noticed that the front of the roof was shoveled, and I hope that will support longevity and good gutter health. So thank you to everyone who contributed to the snow removal efforts over winter break. I'm interested in maybe I need greater clarity about which sixth graders would potentially move to which middle school and when. So if that could be part of future discussions, that would be helpful. I appreciate the administration's willingness to engage in DEED's evidence-based ELA vetting process, and I'm interested in how that evolves over coming weeks. And then I really want to reserve the bulk of my thoughts to talk about artificial intelligence. A new program called ChatGPT was released 5 or 6 weeks ago. I don't know if other board members have been following this. I would encourage you to read and explore what it might mean for education. When it first appeared on my radar, I think I began to worry. I'm a little less worried right now and maybe more excited than I was. For those of you who haven't heard of ChatGPT, it's a revolutionary AI program, artificial intelligence, trained on a robust, very large data set to predict human knowledge and speech. In short, it can summarize, it can answer direct questions, it can edit, it can rewrite, and it can generate in a highly interactive way. I had a long conversation about this with my sixth grader, and her eyes went wide. However, because programming, its programming is not a citation or even plagiarism. It's generative. Asking the same question to ChatGPT multiple times can lead to different and multiple answers that are undetectable by plagiarism detectors and possibly undetectable even by really bright teachers. So ChatGPT, as I explained to my sixth grader, could, if you have a topic, let's say, what are the causes of World War II? It can generate a 5 or 10 paragraph essay on the causes of World War II. And then you can further command it to revise it in the tone of a high school sophomore or a sixth grader. Mm-hmm. This is where her eyes really, she got it. It can do a lot more. It can generate creative dialogue, screenplays, songs. It can rewrite, it can do your editing. I think it is going to radically, it's just the tip of the iceberg, right? Artificial intelligence is coming, and there are going to be more iterations that are going to transform what we ask our students to know and be able to do. I'm going to quote a recent article: ChatGPT will change the relative value of human skills and therefore what students should know and be able to do. It has shortcomings. It cannot really think outside of its training data set. It doesn't know what happened yesterday, for example. I think it ended in about 2021. It can't do stepwise assignments. It can't document, like cite or justify its reasoning or editing or provide accurate references or links. but New York City schools have already banned ChatGPT on their network and their devices, which is an interesting path forward, but I don't think it's the right one. I don't think it's equitable, because if New York City schools has a Chromebook and a student has a Chromebook and an iPad, that student who has access to something on their own can go around, upload their document to Google Documents, and then put it back on their school assignments. So I don't think that what New York City schools did and just banning it is correct. I think that we need to think as a community, really. We need input from our teachers, from our administrators, from our parents, from our students about how we can harness these capabilities to support our students' innate ingenuity and develop their nimble skill sets. We've talked in the past, and I remember our governance meeting, I used the word nimble. And we need our students to be nimble for the 21st century. And I also think we need to increase the value of what ChatGPT and these other AI programs cannot do, right? So value oral work, verbal communication, writing in class, maybe without the use of the internet. You could reimagine, right? Think, pair, share, which is sort of an approach to teaching, to think, pair, ChatGPT, pair, share, right? So you're interacting with this chatbot to improve your writing skills. You can analyze, why did the ChatGPT come up with its materials? What's missing? How would you improve its voice or its tone? So I don't think that it is going to signal the end of writing, whether it's an English essay or a historical essay or, I don't know, a science lab report. But I think it's going to change. I think it's going to change everything. I don't think we can send essays home as homework anymore and expect them to be done in a fair and equitable manner. So I'm really interested in understanding. I think it can also help personalize learning at scale. So anyways, I was 5-6 weeks ago really kind of afraid of this new thing, but I think we need to embrace it. And I'll leave it there.
Well, thank you, ma'am. That's not me. That's my AI. Thank you. Yes, Member Holloman.
I have to ask Member Lessons, can it chair a meeting?
I think it could actually, you could probably command it to chair a meeting in the style of President Bellamy.
Oh, yes, thank you. I believe that might work.
When you said it couldn't give justification or citations, I thought, God, it really is like a student. And I'm also reminded in the late 90s, our debate was, should we allow kids to wear Bart Simpson t-shirts to school? We've come such a long way in this time. Also, I was reminded that 2 years ago, I was in this building to get my vaccination. And it just brought back to me a time when, for any of you that came here to get vaccinated, there was a real positive energy out of all of it. And I think a big part of it was we were actually doing something again, that for the first time, this was something we could do to really help the situation, help the city. I believe it's still the case that ASD vaccinated more people than any other agency in the state, which is kind of remarkable. But it did make me think. I wanted to thank staff again that was involved in it for making it happen. So many people at community councils that normally are pretty negative about ASD kind of changed their tone because they came here, they didn't wait in line too long, they were treated very nicely, they were watched carefully after they got their shot and sent on their way after it was clear they didn't have complications. It just really seemed to change a lot of people's perception of the school district. The last, I think I share some of Member Bellamy's concerns that and I kind of get the understanding that we still would be closing a school and using our resources more efficiently. But for a lot of people that watch us move a lot of kids out of a building and then move a different group of kids into a building, they would ask, what the heck are you doing? And are you really saving any money? And we are, but I would like for the administration to note what the long-term impact is if people stay in that building, what kind of cost we're looking at down the road. Sooner or later, we have to address the code situations and different things that come up with that. And that is kind of a tough decision, but, otherwise it's really nice to be back after a great break. And I do think our staff has carried us through a really difficult fall. Really dealt with a lot of questions from the public and represented us well at our town halls and other situations. And I want to thank everyone for that again.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I was going to do the same thing. Thank you very much. Just a couple of housekeeping. Actually, you guys have homework. You have homework. Yes. Would you pass this out, please? Everybody gets one. This is in preparation for our board retreat. And no, we will not use 6 hours on this, but we are going to do some pre-work on our self-evaluation so that we can get it done in about an hour, hour and a half. So prior to our board work session, which will be on Saturday, the 21st. Actually, the retreat itself will start on the 20th from 4 to 7, then move to continue on Saturday from 9 to 4. And I will get the agenda out as soon as everything is confirmed. But prior to that, I'd like for each board member to complete this pre-evaluation, starting with the last page that's stapled together. We've done this before. We're just going to do it in pairs this time rather than as a whole group. So, and I have assigned partners. Member Higgins, you are my partner. I know, I don't know. I had a minute there. Wilson and Jacobs, you're going to work together. Lessons and Holloman, you're going to work together. And Dr. Bryant and Member Donnelly, you're going to work together. And basically, you're going to complete page 21. And then you're going to just have a conversation about pages 1 through 7. All right. And I am available if you have questions. It's pretty easy. I'm asking that you get me your collaborative notes, comments, that page 21, especially if you'll get that for me, your scores and those items that you believe we can do better over the next 3 months or 6 months. Okay. Other than that, be sure to check your community council meeting schedules because some of them have changed. I don't think the time or the days have changed. I don't think the times have changed, but you might want to check those to make sure that you are, you're not missing those. And with that, those are all of my comments. Member Donnelly, I saw your.
Was you saying?
Oh, they changed. Okay, so that's a good point. So check all of your council meetings because days and times may have changed. I also sent out the school board report that I sent to the Federation. You guys are welcome to use it or add to it and make it your own. With that, any other comments? Dr. Bryant, you have any last minute?
No further comments. Thank you, Madam President.
Okay.
Madam President, move to adjourn.
Moved and second to adjourn.